Palace, and I am not doing Karnak at,
No.
at Caesar's Palace. I know, but...
You do a whole series of those shake-up jokes.
No.
No.
I don't understand that at all. There was nothing there. There's got to be a typo. That had to be a typo.
No, you read it nicely. It was good timing.
Read it swell, but
Yeah.
I realized when I said, this is a typo. Just anything.
Well, sometimes you can't divine the questions if they don't work on the typewriter.
What am I, of course. Lily Tomlin is a most talented young lady. Ever since she started on Laugh-In, she has developed tremendously, created a series of wonderful characters that she does, ranging from Edith Ann, as you know, to Ernestine and many others. And this Friday, she's going to be doing a special called Lily. Is it on this network? It's not on this network. But nevertheless,
We help everyone.
it will be on. Would you welcome Lily Tomlin? How are you?
I'm just fine.
It's so great to have you here, really.
Why, thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah. I saw you doing one night, I think, with Dick Cavett from one of the universities.
Yes.
Maryland or something? Was
yes,
it Maryland?
University of Maryland.
And you were sensational.
Why, thanks.
Aren't those great crowds? Do you like to work
yeah,
the college?
I love them, yes.
'Cause
They're the best.
Yeah, the kids nowadays, kids I shouldn't say that, but the young people in college are so hip as to what's going on.
And they're just so enthusiastic, so they make a wonderful audience.
Yeah. Do you like the question and answer thing you do with them? The ad lib type of stuff?
Yes, I don't normally do that. I usually, when I do a college concert, I usually do Edith Ann with questions.
Right.
I can talk much better as Edith Ann than as myself.
Do you feel more secure? That's interesting.
No, not, I mean, Edith Ann has a certain, I can talk out of Edith Ann's life, you know.
And if I could say...
More interestingly, I would say, than my own.
In other words, if I said what's the most embarrassing thing that happened to you, as Edith Ann, something would come to you easier than...
Yeah, something would come to me. And it would be a horrible incident because it happened when my dog Buster, see, what happened was I was giving Buster a little bath and accidentally some Clorox fell in.
Oh, in the bath?
Yes, and all his hairs fell out. And now whenever I go near him, he just goes... It wasn't so embarrassing as it was horrible.
You have a great ear. Before you did Laugh-In, where did you get your experience?
I started, I was in New York, and first I was in college in Detroit, and I discovered that I did vignettes and characters, you know. I hadn't realized that I did before I got into a college show, and I saw what amounted to material, and I realized that I had always invented stuff like that.
Do you remember the first time you're in front of a group and you got a genuine laugh from something you did, and all of a sudden you realized, hey, maybe I'm
No,
kind of...
I'll tell you when that happens to me is when I'm a child. See, I'm sure all this was tied up with my father, for instance, because when I was a kid and I lived in this old apartment house, and we lived in a basement apartment. And upstairs from us lived a woman named Mrs. Spear, who worked in the daytime, and her husband worked nights. So she'd come home from work about 4 or 5 o'clock, and we'd be fixing to have supper because my father worked in the factory, so we'd eat very early, like 5 o'clock or something. And my mother who was always, very nice and very pleasant and willing to please. And Mrs. Spear would ring our doorbell every night, and my mother would go to the foot of the stairs of this basement apartment, and she'd look up, and she'd ring Mrs. Spear in, and then Mrs. Spear would say, "Oh, Mrs. Tomlin, I'm so sorry to have to ring your bell again tonight, but I forgot my key." And then she'd say, "Something smells good." So my mother would say, "Well, come on down and have a bite to eat with us," see? So Mrs. Spear would eat dinner with us 2 or 3 times a week. And whenever she'd leave, my father wouldn't say a word. He'd sit over on the side like this, He'd sit eating, and he wouldn't say a word to Mrs. Spear. And then every time she'd leave, he'd say, "If old lady Spear eats supper with us one more time, I'm going to give her a piece of my mind." So the next day, when Mrs. Spear rang the doorbell, I was about 5 or 6 years old, and my mother couldn't get to the door first. And I ran and answered it, and I told Mrs. Spear what my father's true feelings.
As 5-year-old children are wont to do.
Yes,
Right.
and it was, and while my mother was horrified, and it humiliated her, my father rather applauded it in a covert way. And so I think that was when I got on to, since we got off on this subject,
Yeah.
I can remember two other incidents where, and it was in the 3rd grade, and one was in kindergarten and one was in 3rd grade.
Do you remember
wanna hear
clear back
these?
to kindergarten?
Oh, sure.
I don't. I have people who can say they can remember when they were a year old, and I never can understand that. Or 2 years.
Well, one incident was I would go to the country, because my mother and daddy were from Kentucky, and we would go to the farm in the summer. And when I would come back, whenever I would draw or paint animals, I would always draw body parts on them. I would draw milk bags on cows, and I would draw penises on horses and things.
Well, they do have them.
Yes, and I would draw them. I would indicate that they had body parts, you know. And I remember my teachers being highly amused.
And highly stimulated, I might add.
So
Disney's animals never have body parts. Did you know that?
So I just, I can remember those things. Those things must have been not only provocative to me, but to those adults around me as well.
That's interesting you would do that at that age. Did you ever notice in the Disney pictures that the animals never have those parts of the bodies at all?
No.
It must confuse a lot of children, you know, when they first see a horse or a cow or a chipmunk. Strange animal. We have to take a little break here to pick up something, but we're coming back. Sure we are. If you just happen to join us, we're talking with Lily Tomlin. We have Jerry Van Dyke and Walter Slazak and Mr. Sam Blotner with us. Did you meet Sam, Mr. Blotner?
Yes, I said hello to him.
Yeah, he's an interesting man. We're talking about your family and family background. This may seem like a naive question. I'm sure you get it a lot of times. The success you've had, how does your family relate to that? Very often you get strange reactions when offspring becomes very successful. You go back home. Sometimes your friends change in relation to you.
Well, that I think is true. I think because for a lot of friends, I don't think I have any friends basically left, that I really still relate to. You asked me something, and I can get off on such a tangent. I started to talk about one person I really do still love and communicate with is a woman that lived in our old apartment house.
Mrs. Spear?
No, this is
never forget.
Someone else. I won't mention her name because she'll crack up anyway, but she's about 15 years older than I am. So when she was 25, I was about 10. And she was divorced, see. Mm-hmm. She was one of the few divorced women in our building. And she was...
that considered very...
not bad, unless you were suffering quite a bit.
Oh, that's right.
So she didn't suffer too much. Her boyfriend slept over, And she was quite attractive anyway. And so she was the building hussy, really. And she never was invited to the...
word for a long time.
Right. She was literally the building hussy and was not invited to the Tupperware parties.
Oh, no. What rejection.
And I loved her so much, and I still do. And we had I just could relate to her so much, and enjoyed her so much. And so I'm still friends with her. Now, she's one person that truly I can still identify. I don't know.
She's still living back in the building?
No, she's left there long, long ago.
Yeah.
And lives in another part of the world and all, another part of Detroit. But my family, of course, loved the fact that I got famous.
Yeah.
And I have so many things I could tell you. I don't even know where to start. Like, for instance, just when I flashed on when I was telling you that other story earlier about the animals and mentioning body parts.
Yeah.
I was down visiting my mother in Kentucky, and I was going to do a college concert nearby in Missouri. And it was very close to Paducah, where my mother lived, so all my relatives were going to come. I know they didn't want to come, basically, because, first of all, it was like about an hour-and-a-half drive, and the Mississippi and the Ohio's were swollen to flood levels. And most of them have to get up and milk in the morning, so they have to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, and to be out late is a big hardship. But anyway, and I didn't want them to come because I was afraid I would have to censor my act.
Well, you don't get really racy, do you?
No, I don't, but I say body parts, just like I said the word breasts on my last special a year ago, and I was sitting in my mother's living room in Kentucky, and she went, oh! Did you have to say that?
That's still no-no, right?
No, and not supposed to say body parts.
Oh.
So I didn't I didn't censor my act, you know. I mean, I forgot, actually. I mean, I was in a torment backstage before it started, and 50 of my relatives were sitting in the front row. And after I got started and I was on such a roll with the audience, I forgot, you know.
So you just went right ahead.
I just went ahead and did nothing in my act is gratuitous in that sense. You know, it's really elevated and tasteful.
Body parts and all. Body parts can be tasteful.
Well...
And elevated. Hold it. You see, now that is your joke, and you're responsible for that. I certainly did. I mean, you can talk about part in a tasteful manner. That's what you were saying.
Or in a truthful manner.
In a truthful manner. That was the word that should have been in there. Sorry about that. No, I'm not sorry. It's your fault.
They've only cheapened themselves.
That's right. They've lowered themselves. They'll feel smaller in the morning for it. That's wrong also, isn't it? You see? When you're wrong, everything starts to go wrong, no matter what you say. Excuse me, I'm sorry I didn't make that. So, your relatives, how did they react to all this?
Well, they were very kindly to me and polite and sort of patted me and went on, you know, and I was suffering, feeling guilty because I knew they had to get up in the morning and all. And so the next morning, my Aunt Odie Mae, who's really wonderful. And she's
Odie Mae?
Yeah, she's my daddy's oldest sister. And she called me up and she said, well, I guess there was kitchen lights on all over Ballard County last night talking about you. But I told R.Y. I'm very well acquainted with those words.
You were forgiven.
Well, I was forgiven by her.
You've got a good background to draw on.
Oh, they're
everybody
does
really
when
wonderful.
they do.
You draw on your relatives,
Wait, let me tell you what
friends.
my father says when I first got on Laugh-In. I told this story on my first special a couple of years ago, but I never got any real true reaction to it. To me, it's just a poem, you know. But I had just been on Laugh-In 5 or 6 weeks, and the phone operator had made me very well known, and he was very tickled by it. And I went to visit him in Indiana. He and my mother had moved there, and so he took us all out to dinner. But we went to, like, you know, it's really like a tavern, but you know, a tavern that has a lot of wood in it, so it's kind of high class.
Right, I know the difference.
And
Called something like Ye Old Tavern.
Ye
It
Old,
gives it-
right, but it has octagonal tiles on the floor.
Yeah.
And a very lot of dark wood, and you can get shrimp, chicken, barbecued chicken.
It takes it out of the bar category.
Ribs.
Yeah.
It takes it out of the bar category, right. Because you can have dinner there in a
Right.
sense, but everything comes in a plastic basket. You know? But it's really quite wonderful. So my daddy, so we're all sitting there, and he fixed up the lady upstairs with a fella he worked with at the factory, and we were all sitting there, and the waitress came over, and all the Tomlins talk in that kind of voice like that I told you. You know, that's why Odie Mae talks just like my father.
Yeah.
They just happen to talk that way. So my father calls the waitress over, and he says, "Who do you think that is?" Pointing to me. And I've been on Laugh-In about 6 weeks, you know. And nobody knows that this is this. So she gets down and she looks in my face, because me and my daddy look just alike, you know, and she said, "Well, I guess that's your daughter." I says, "Yeah, you're damn right. Get up and sing a song, babe."
Do you?
And I said, "Oh, Papa, please, I don't want to. I can't." And he said, "Babe, get up and sing a song for the people." I said, "Please, Papa, I don't want to. I'm too embarrassed." And he said, "Babe, you got to learn how to be popular."
Well, your dad's proud of you. That's all. That's
Oh, yeah,
natural.
sure.
Get up and sing.
So I told that on my first special because it seemed so classic, you know, the idea of trying to embark on a network television career, and you must learn how to be popular.
Yeah, it's kind of strange. We have to do this, and we're coming back. Just one moment. Stay with us.
It's only...
We're back. We're spending a good time here with Lily Tomlin. Of all the characters you've done, most of them, of course, come out of experience. I think I've heard you tell the story before when you do the gal who's at the checkout counter. Dot, isn't that her name?
Yes.
That you actually went down to a market, observed...
I worked as a checker for 3 or 4 days at an Alpha Beta in Burbank.
Really went down?
Yes, it was the one at Whitsett and, is it Whitsett and Burbank, I guess.
I think that's my favorite one.
Is it? It's
Oh,
really
yes.
great. I love it. It's extremely well stocked.
Oh, good.
I said to Maurice, who is the manager there, I said, I wish this Alphabeta were near me. It's so well stocked.
Yeah. So you went in and actually picked up all the
Yes,
little...
I did. Because I wanted to become proficient on the cash register. And I did... It's just that I couldn't really... it was a neighborhood where there's a lot of older people, and so they're on fixed incomes, I'm sure. And it was really... I mean, people...
Kind of sad at times when people are
Not
looking...
really
whether they-
sad, because the human beings are just too gutsy and terrific, you know, to be that sad. It's just that the spirit is terrific, but it is sort of delicate, you know, because people line up for day-old bread. And although I think buying day-old bread is the only intelligent thing to do, because you buy of course, you buy a loaf of bread and pay 70 cents for it or something, and the next day you've got 2/3 of it left and it's still day-old. You might as well buy day-old, you know.
Yeah, but then the third day, it's 3 days old. Works both ways, but I see what you mean. No, I think you're right. I used to work in a
Did you?
supermarket one time, yeah. Stamping cans. Boy, is that boring.
Oh, I would like that. I always wanted to do that.
Oh, yeah, but after about 14 cases, you don't care. And you're stamping people going by, crack your head. It's not the most creative work in the whole world, you know. If you can find the top or the bottom of the can, you're ahead of the game. Are you working on anybody new? Any new characters?
No, but I was going to, after I mentioned that, darn it, now I don't know what to do.
What?
I don't know which way to turn at this moment.
Turn anyway? No, you turn to the right there.
Well, I was going to do a little bit of supermarket, but it...
Oh,
Go ahead.
Okay, it only take, no, wait a
do
second.
whatever you like.
This is, because I couldn't tell anything really humorous about working at the Alphabeta, you know, other than the fact that I stole a steak and a roll of adhesive tape. Oh, no, I'm just kidding,
No, you
Maurice.
didn't do that, yes.
And so, I was going to do this
Did you ever
little bit.
shoplift anything?
Oh,
When you were a
many
kid?
times.
Did you?
Yes. In fact, I faced great humiliation more than once.
Sorry. No,
I don't like to talk freely about having shoplifted because it gives people, it sounds like I'm advocating it.
yes,
you
and I
know?
heard once we talked about it on the air one night, excuse me for interrupting, I got a letter from the president of the Department Stores of America or something saying, please don't make that look like it's a lighted thing because it's billions of dollars a year.
Yes, it
so-
is, right. But one thing did, I'm getting off the track, but when I was in Detroit, I had shoplifted at J.L. Hudson, which is the biggest department store in Detroit. Why I'm revealing this, I don't know.
Because I'm your friendly doctor type. You tell me
Well, I'd only
anything.
done it because it was, I actually wanted to see what it was like, you know. I wanted to see what the experience was like, because I didn't try to do a slick job. I did a very bungled job so that I would get apprehended. And as a matter of fact, I did, and the woman said, it was wintertime, and she had on a light topper, so I knew that she was not a true shopper. You know, walking around the store in like a raincoat, and it was 20 below outside. And she said, walk this way, keep smiling, no one is going to embarrass you. Keep walking this way, keep smiling, no one is going to embarrass you. Keep smiling, keep walking this way, no one's going to embarrass you. Anyway, they did embarrass me, and I gave up the item that I had shoplifted, and then I smiled and laughed and horsed around and said, well, and they knew me, and then they realized that I was an actress, a local actress, and I said I wanted to see what it felt like to be apprehended. And then, so years, but they still put my name down on the card and put it in a file, you know, and I was just mortified. But then years later, after I got on Laugh-In, I did a record signing party in the record department. And in my mind was always the fact that downstairs in the security department was my name on file.
Shoplifter, Tom
Yeah.
or Lily.
But anyway, all right, do I have time or not? Do you have to break?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, I'll just do this one real fast. This is like Dot, this is Dot, the supermarket checker, and Edith Ann is coming through the line. Edith Ann is the little child.
This little piggy went to market. This little piggy stayed home. This little piggy had roast beef.
And this little piggy was the one back there on aisle 6 making the sour cream dip for her Fritos, wasn't you, Edith Ann?
No.
Then you was the one back there making a peanut butter sandwich.
No, I was the one back there reading this comic book and eating cookies.
Well, let's see now, what you got in this cart? Popcorn, peanuts, cupcakes. Who told you to get all this stuff?
The man on TV.
Well, now, Edith Ann, I can take all this other stuff back, but you have eaten the entire contents of this box of animal crackers. Don't you think you ought to pay for it?
No, Dot. I didn't do nothing honest.
You look me straight in the eye. Did you or did you not open up this box of animal crackers?
Yes. But when I looked inside, there wasn't nothing there. They had eaten up each other.
My heart's pounding slightly.
Perfect line for
Because they
child,
told
though,
about
isn't it true?
shoplifting.
Yes, well, don't worry about it. We should do a disclaimer. Don't go around shoplifting, because you'll be embarrassed, but keep smiling. If you see a lady in a raincoat in Hudson's and it's winter, don't take nothing. We'll take a break and we'll be right back.